will capture and hold the viewer's attention. So basically it's talking about emphasizing on a particular data point or differentiating. In this case, I was interested in knowing how Georgia was doing. I've just highlighted it. It's great. So now I can easily see which is my focal point and which is my point of interest. So basically it's using the art of distinction to highlight and create a focal point in your visualization that makes it much easier for your user to interpret. So those are the laws, and as I said, right, these are just few of them that we just saw, which kind of helps you kind of at least apply this design thinking process whenever you have a chart in front of you. You know, just make sure that it's easily readable. As much as you want to focus on the prettiness, on the making it impressive and all jazzy, make sure it's also useful to your user. That's kind of, you know, very key when you're designing any visualization. The last but not the least is choosing your colors. So colors, as I said, can make or break a visualization. So imagine that you're having a sales going up, right, and you're denoting or using it a red color. Is it really a apt one to use? Red always is associated with something negative, and immediately you would think, oh, what's going on? Is something wrong? Is something that I need to be worrying about? Again, even just this red, right, how does your mind really think red is negative? Because our brain tends to always think of images from the past, and we always tend to associate anything with our past experiences. Our past experiences, red is danger, not good. And that's what you immediately see a chart with a red color, that's probably what you're going to think too. Maybe a green is probably a better choice, but again, there's always more into colors. Colors is a big topic by itself, because if you look at somebody who's colorblind, they can't really differentiate between red and green very distinctly. So not the best colors to be used when you're designing something for a wide audience. Yeah, there's a lot of debate when I actually use this in another smaller presentation group, which is true. I mean, you know, and because a lot of people are like, oh my God, colors. I mean, it's true. Everybody, oh, there's a lot of colors, so what do I use? Which is right? Again, that's what we're going to see. There's a guiding principle, because there is a bunch of colors on the left. Yeah, being girls, of course, we can identify probably a little more easily. But then I guess nowadays, I guess it's changed. I mean, I think we have a lot more guys be identifying with a lot more colors. But then it doesn't have to be this complex. You can actually use some guiding principles to see what colors are. It's pretty much knowing what is the basics of color, right? Not sure how many of you heard something about color theory. There's actually something called a color theory, which actually kind of explains what the basic colors are and what can be best used for what. In this color, if you see the primary colors, right, are nothing but the red, yellow, and blue. And then, of course, you have the secondary colors, the green, orange, and purple, and then the tertiary colors on either side of the secondary colors. I just have some definitions there because we're going to be probably using those two in the next two slides. Hues are nothing but colors. I mean, simple. I mean, you know, don't get confused with the fancy word. It's nothing but the pure colors. The distinctive colors are referred to as hues. And then tints is something with a white added, something with a little more gray added is probably a tone of the same color. And then, of course, you have various shades from light to dark, which is probably what brightness is controlling. So let's look at this simple one here. Can anyone, just raise your hands. Would you be able to order these colors? If you think you can order these colors in any particular way. Okay. No, order it in a particular way, in a sequence or any of that stuff. Yeah, Vibcure is great, but yeah. So let's order these colors. Perfect, right? So it's not that complex. So yeah, so whenever you have a brightness or a saturation, whenever you have shades or when you have a light to dark, you always perceive them as some kind of order. You can actually see an order that it goes, be it low to high or high to low. So whenever you have some elements, ordinal, nominal data, but in case of ordinal, of course, you're going to use not the ordered ones. In that case, you're going to use the hue because there's no order possible for ordinal data, nominal data, and so you're going to be using the hue colors. But when we're talking about ordinal data where we have an order to it, right? So that's where you can use the saturation or the brightness to kind of indicate an increasing or a decreasing ratio. So these are some again guidelines that you can use. And let me just, this is one quick example where things can be done wrongly if you kind of confuse your colors. In this case, I don't have the axis here, but primarily just telling you this is actually the sales for a product. Do you really want to use different colors in this case? The same product is the same sales. It's very confusing. You're looking at all the colors and you want to then look at a legend which is telling nothing but the same information. Stick to the same colors when you don't have to use multiple colors. Keep it simple. Don't confuse with all the color schemes that are available. And pretty much any fancy tool these days come with a whole lot of color schemes. Yes, they're all great, but make sure you're using the right one for the right purpose. Color schemes, right? So this is something that again, very simple. If you remember these three, it makes it simple. It's very simple, similar to the perceived as ordered concept that we just saw. Are they monochromatic, or analogous, or complementary, right? The first two color schemes are very useful when you want to show increasing or decreasing density, or like, a sales is increasing over the various categories or any of that stuff within a particular department. Maybe then you could use this probably a shading to kind of indicate that. But complementary is whenever you want to use contrasts. When you're trying to use two different variables or two different information, then try to use a contrast, because that way you don't mix up or muddle up with both of them. Especially if I use something similar, shades on left and right, it makes it difficult for me to differentiate which is a different category or which is a different department. So this is summarizing basically what I just told you in the previous few slides. Remember these two basic things. Are you trying to present something similar ordering, or are you trying to portray something contrast? If you look at the image below, you would see that the blue and the, there are various shades of blue, kind of giving you the perception that, oh, these are all similar elements. Whereas the red is actually the, is distinctive element. So that is giving you the contrast that, you probably want to focus on these, or probably they're different, or something is happening with these. So as long as you remember what are you trying to portray in your message, you could use the right color scheme based on that. And I think that's probably summarizes, and I'm right on time. So yeah, so just a little joke for you to take home. But yeah, so we're opening up to questions. If anybody asks anything, or if you want to walk up to me and ask me something too, that's fine. So, sure.
Is there continuity also used in data visualization?
Of course.
Perception. Can you explain how continuity?
Yeah, so it depends, right? So when you say perception, again, perception, when you talk about perception design, or if it's continuity, right? Continuity is any continuous data. So as I said, right, when we're looking at the chart types. So if you're looking at something which is trending, or which is like between continuous data points, time is the perfect example, right? So in that case, it kind of, you have to kind of determine which chart is actually best suited, right? So that is actually a design. But again, it depends on the number of time periods. Using lesser time periods, you could, that's why I said certain times a judgment has to be taken. Whenever we look at time, we always tend to look at its trend. We always tend to look at its line. But then it depends. Maybe you have very few data points. You don't need really a line chart to indicate it. Time is one concept that you can, probably any continuous data points is much easier. When you take to categorical is when you need to be a little more careful than continuous. It's been always a controversial topic, right? So one of the aspects that I was talking about, right, that's when I mentioned, right? See, size, especially imagine you have multiple data points, 7 or 8 especially. It's a totally wrong use case, because what you're going to have is probably going to be very difficult to see if there are two equidistant 5 points which are like of the same size, right? So it depends. It's always advisable, especially see if the static image probably it's still okay, because you know what your data points are, and you're fine using a pie chart because you probably have much differentiating factors. Imagine the data changes, which is what happens really, right? You don't know what's going to happen. Probably you want to get an equal 50-50, and or like a 50, or like a 20 and 20 and a 20 and 30. You can't really differentiate between 20 and 30 again. It's very difficult for our eye to kind of perceive which is the size which is different. Of course, there's much more. Pie chart is a topic that you can go on for like 30 minutes. It's best avoided, but again, there are situations where you can use it. If you look at a lot of newspapers, a lot of the sports, pie chart is the best. But then that's because the data is static and they know that it's suited and that's when they're using. A lot of times they do use bar too. So
what is the alternative to this?
bar chart is good. Bar chart, especially when you have a distribution, percentage distribution, use a bar chart. It shows it's much, as I said, again, it's length encoded. It's much easier. And also you can actually clearly see the differences. And a pie chart, again, when you use many colors, you have a legend which is more than 10 and then you want to sit and correlate, you lose your focus.
There's something also called donut chart, right? It's kind of alternative to pie chart, and I think
it's visually appealing, I would say. Again, it has the same problems again. What are the proportions in it? It's very, nowadays you don't see pie charts because donuts have taken over because they're very appealing and very, very nice. Especially in infographics, you see a lot of this fancy, but the same problem again.
When you have more than 2 or 3 variables, that time this visualization becomes very messy.
That's more
any
complex.
suggestion or principle on making visualization when you want to put more
There
data
are a
points?
lot of more visualizations that can be used. Again, it is an entire complete topic to it where you kind of choose. Again, everybody has a guiding principle. Even when you have like 2 or more than 2 or 3, right? There's so much more, especially today in visualizing big data. There's a lot more charts that are available which can actually use to plot those or any of that, which is actually much more intuitive. But that's again an entire different topic where you have this entire learning about those kind of charts, how they can be best suited.
No, but name few charts where we can do some research in Google.
You can use a canonical, or you could use any of those, a Sankey chart or any of that stuff where you can have multiple variables in it. So, but yeah.
Do you ever use radar charts?
Yeah, traditionally it's been a lot of use. I personally haven't used. It depends on your use case again. I personally haven't found a use case for it. In my experience, haven't used it. Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah. But you see a lot of old books quoting that, and then you would see the radar chart first thing as plotted. Right? Yeah. A technology as a tool to visualize. See, the most popular and what is in the industry today, of course, is Tableau. The good thing about Tableau, of course, is also a lot of these visual design principles have been used in designing the tool. It won't let you do anything wrong. It actually, if you're trying to go and say, for example, that we saw, where we had a bar chart with multiple colors. And then I suggested use the same color when you have using the same object. You cannot change that when you're using, even today Excel actually has come up with it. Doesn't allow you to change the colors whenever it's the same thing. So a lot of these tools, of course, are coming up with these, applying these design principles, which makes your life much easier. Tableau is very popular, I would say. But of course, you can also use multiple technology today. The business objects has come with Lumira and all of that stuff. And then you have ClickSense. A lot of DV tools are out there. But I would say Tableau, MicroStrategy are probably the most popular in the industry.
Any advice on the open source JavaScript libraries?
Oh yeah, so it depends on what you're trying. So yeah, if you're using it for, say, yeah, of course, D3 is very common. Again, a lot of people use D3 for open source visualizations. So that's one thing I've seen at least frequently. And whenever a lot of people come to me for reference for people also, that's one skill that they look for. Knowing D3 and JavaScript is very useful again for visualization.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. The session was quite impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move towards the next session of the day. And the next topic is automating inside pipelines. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to take you through the next session, we have Mr. Raghavan Kirthivasan, Senior Manager at AIG Science. Raghav is part of the data science team in AIG and has experience of 14 years, focused primarily on analytics and building predictive models. Most of the experience has been in BFSI space, working in companies such as American Express and Royal Bank of Scotland, where he was managing the risk strategy for consumer loans and cards portfolio. He has worked on a variety of business problems by utilizing a wide range of math, stat techniques. Prior to joining AIG, Raghav was the analytics leader for insurance RNA team at VNS. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause for Mr. Raghavan Kirtivasan. Over to you.